So this is Across the Obelisk. I didn't see any videos kind of explaining what this game is, and I kind of want to just give a shake at it. So it's a single player, but you can also play with up to 4 people. Slay the Spire kind of game. You have 4 characters, and you can pick any kind of combination of these. You can have 2 scouts, you could have, you could have all the warriors. General recommendation is 1 from each class. And the reason this is because each class here has damage in a kind of damage type. So the mages have magic damage. So they have fire, lightning, and frost. The scouts have bow damage, and then they also have sword damage. And then they also have like psychic damage, I think, with the bard abilities, but those aren't really in the game yet too much. The healers, they have holy damage, they got healing, they have dark damage, and then they do have a little bit of mixture of psychic damage, and the mages also have a little mixture of psychic damage. And then the warriors, they have, sword, hammer, and then they have a lot of blocking because they're in the front, they're going to take the most damage. So we'll put Magnus there, we'll put Scoutman over here, we'll put Evelyn in the back. We'll just start with the default party here. I'm playing on Madness 1 just because otherwise the game would be too easy. And so the game starts out like this. You're on a node-based movement system, and you kind of want to plot out where you're going to go, because you'll see that there's these quests out here, and if you go past them, you'll pick up a quest, and if you complete the quest, then you can play with that character. So when you see these are new like class unlocks in the scout class. Like the pigman is a healer class. This is where Cornelius is, so he's a new mage you can unlock. This is where Heiner is, and then this is where the lizard guy is in the scout class. But you can just kind of go through here any way you want. There definitely is like optimal routes, but there's a lot of variance with it depending on how you progress through the nodes, because when you get to certain nodes, you'll have these opportunities to roll chance events based on cards in your deck. So it's pretty interesting. I'm not going to do any upgrading because that's a little more complicated. Just know that the church, you can remove cards from your deck. This, you can buff cards in your deck, so every card has 1 of 2 upgrade paths. You can go kind of, cheap, low-cost cards where you have, you're doing less damage, but the card costs 0, so you draw it and you play it, and that's great. Here, you can go a fuck ton of bleed, still costs 2, but a fuck ton of bleed, or you can go cheaper, but, a little less bleed and a little less damage. And every character has a variety of these builds. I mean, you could go fire, but you could go a different kind of fire than somebody else because every card has 2 upgrade paths. And generally things are pretty well balanced. And you can even, after you've upgraded the card, you can like transfer the upgrade over to another one. So you can like have, this upgrade, but then be like, I'm having a ton of energy and I can't even spend all the energy I have because I've gotten so many other things during the game that I want the 3-cost Frostbolt now instead. Also, you have the armory. Usually the starting town armory is full of shit, so you'd have to be pretty lucky to buy anything here, but you also have pets. And now getting all these pets, you have to do quests in the game to unlock them. And they're not explicitly shown. You kind of, like, you pick up an item, like let's say you pick up an egg when you do the occultist event in the first act, and you bring that egg somewhere and it hatches a thing and then you get a pet. That's just one example. I kind of forget how you get some of these. Getting the sheep is the easiest one, and the pets that give you, a little resistance, and then every turn they always do something. The pet is attacking. So the sheep every turn does random 6 psychic damage and 1 insanity to an enemy. They did make insanity actually have a meaningful debuff to enemies, but I forget exactly what it does now because they've changed that since I've last played. And what is the roguelike element to the game? The roguelike element is unlocking all these supplies. So as you play through the game, you'll go to nodes and you'll have the opportunity once in a while to fight the node at a higher difficulty, but you can get supplies, and the supplies are those little crates that I showed before. And when you get enough supplies, you can unlock one of the upgrades. I've played the game a lot, so I have all the upgrades already unlocked. And you can even see I have recolors of all the characters, I think, here, except Reginald. I don't know why I don't have one for him selected. And now I'm in a battle, so I guess I'll explain how the game works. Every turn, you get 3 energy, except for some reason he has 6. I don't exactly know why I have that much energy, but whatever. And you'll see in green is how much energy you're going to be getting next turn. And that the game calculates with energy adding effects as well. So I'll cast Deflect here. It gives me 7 block and allows me to draw a card. It's pretty great. And then I'll Adrenaline. Adrenaline gives me a net gain of energy. And then I actually comboed this wrong because I should use Hunter's Mark. Hunter's Mark puts a debuff that allows the enemy to take 1 extra damage per charge. So I do that, and then I swack them, and I'm doing more damage. I'm doing even more damage. And this is not very efficient, but doesn't really matter. This is just for educational purposes. And I can gain 20 block because, holy shit, I really have this character perked out. Let me go check his perks. Yep, I have almost every perk unlocked for this character. So he is just naturally very strong, even with the basic deck. He can get 20 block off 1 card. That's really good. And he can do 13 damage with 1 card. Usually, if you're lucky, you want to calculate that, like, you know, one mana, 1 energy equals 10 damage. That's a decent ratio. So here, you know, 0, 3 damage. Well, that's awesome. And an interesting thing in this game is that you can actually burn the sheep, and then they can become like fire resistance. I think that's a thing that can happen. I kind of forget how it happens. I think they need to be having the farmers in battle with you as well. But yeah, you start out with 15 cards. Every character in each class has their own deck. They also have their own level up. So Evelyn's level up looks different than Cornelius's level up, who was the fire mage that I showed earlier. And same thing with Andrin and the lizard guy. Magnus's level up is different than other people's. I think, he gets fast on turn 1, so he just naturally can go a lot. Evelyn is a very, like, a jack of all trades kind of character. She can just, like, fill in the gap. But at the same time, she can also kind of go, like, any one element. Generally, she's good at, like, a more generalist position. But, like, for example here, you can get, at level 2, you can choose to get Elemental Proliferation, which this can only be cast on yourself, I believe. And then it increases the damage of all the elements that you do with +2. And then when you hit, you apply 3 of each elemental debuff, and that lasts 1 turn. So that's the kind of card that when you draw it, you want to cast that, and you want to just pump out, like, you know, as much single hit or multi-hit abilities. And the thing is, though, is that this actually combos. So there's an ability called, or a card that's like Cold Orb. I think it costs 4 or 5 mana. But if you drew this and Cold Orb, you could cast Elemental Proliferation and then cast Cold Orb, and it's going to hit 5 times, and it's going to, you know, apply all these debuffs to the enemy. I think it hits in random, though, so that's kind of a downside, but still, it does a lot of good damage for how much mana it is. Or you could get Enchant Weapons, which is a 0-cost card where you discover 3 enchantments. I don't think it's going to show us the enchantments, but I already know what they are. The 3 enchantments are a fire weapon, a frost weapon, and a lightning weapon. And you can actually cast these enchant weapons when you picked your element on other characters. So you can buff them, and then all the damage that they deal gets converted to that element. So let's say you're going Fire Evelyn, and you get a lot of, like, you buy Fire Blast, and you get the upgrade where it applies fire, right? But let's say you've also perked her out where you have lots of extra burn charges, and every charge of burn that you apply reduces the enemy's resistance to that related element by 1%. So let's say you get a bunch of that stacked up, and then you cast, you know, as soon as I can find it, where the fuck did it go? You cast your enchant weapon with the fire weapon on an ally, and then suddenly, like, you've debuffed the shit out of an enemy where he's like -30 in resist, and somehow they're not dead. And then bam, your ally is doing 30% more damage. It's just something that's interesting and cooperative that you can do with, you know, the other people you play with. Obviously, it's, you know, you can really synergize things if you play solo. For me personally, this is like a bit too much to do solo. I don't want to craft 4 decks. So when I play solo, I play very simple decks with very low cost cards. But yeah, here's that holy damage I mentioned, and I just, like, you know, destroy this sheep. And the thing that I like about the game the most, though, is that, like, when I first played it, it was really hard to get through Act 1. It felt like a real challenge. And then when I accomplished that, I was like, damn, this is awesome. And I got to Act 2, and I was like, how the fuck am I going to beat this? And the pacing of the game is, as I unlock new cards, as I unlock new pets, as I unlocked just new things, new equipments, I began to understand, like, what items were at what nodes. It allowed me to progress through the game in a way that I felt rewarded my intelligence as a player rather than my luck. And that's the one thing I really hate about a lot of roguelikes, is that they always reward your luck. And I feel like this game rewards your intelligence, and then rewards your intelligence up until you feel like you've understood the game enough to play the challenge mode. In the challenge mode, everything has been randomized again. So you can't bank on that old knowledge. But the reason that this is fun is because I think in this mode you draft your decks. Yeah, so in this mode you draft your decks, which is a little bit interesting. At first I kind of thought that I wouldn't be into this, but you can re-roll your packs. That's cool. And then you just select of the best of things available to you. And it feels a little jank, but it actually ends up working out. I actually went and finished a run with just the jank decks that I drafted. And I felt like I was able to do that because I understood the game well enough to be able to accomplish that, and not because like I was abusing the knowledge that I had. And so like the random element, like once you played through the base game and you've played through acts 1 through 3 enough, then you can kind of move on to this. They're also coming out with act 4, which will be fun because it'll be a new area. There'll be new shit to unlock. And then one of the things that kind of sucks about the game right now, and it's a good problem though, is that when you get into a game, like usually you can get to about level 4. If you do enough challenges, you can get enough experience to get to about level 4, like right near the end of a run. But you won't be able to get to level 5, and you can't even really enjoy level 4. And so getting Act 4 unlocked means that we'll be able to enjoy these next two power spikes, which will be really fun, because look at this. 30% damage on shadow damage. That's fucking awesome. Oh no, all damage done, and then you do +1 dark, which means every time she applies dark, she applies an additional one, and that also will do an additional healing, because that's what her voodoo does, which is when she applies dark, it heals the most damaged hero for the amount of dark applied. So that's pretty cool. Or, I don't even know what Mojo does, +1 regen, +1 vitality. Vitality, don't sleep on Vitality if you're a new player. I know it looks like shit at the start, but Vitality is actually very good. You just need to know how to use it. Trust me, it's actually very good. Oh, there was actually something I forgot to mention, but another cool thing is that, let's say you're playing in a 4-player game and you've been playing as Evelyn. Even if you've been just playing as Evelyn, you'll get experience for every character that was in the game. And you get experience based on how far you go in the game. You retain some of your currency that you've accrued, so you can carry that over to another run, so you can kind of stockpile, and then you can, cash that out for one run where you're just going to like make a great deck in Act 1, and then, make it even better in Act 2 by like buying cards from the town. And also you get extra bonuses for your score, and your score goes into how much experience you get for the character, and the experience and rank go into how many perks you get. So you'll see here, when you level up, that's your rank. Then this carries over between games, although I think there is a mode where this doesn't exist, so you can't like use the accrued power that you have. But this is just for like the regular gameplay mode, and you can get yourself really strong. Like, look at this. You can have 12% all resistances. That's really fucking good. That's like a really good equipment that you could find in Act 1, and I have that just because I've, leveled this character up to rank 26. And leveling up feels good because 1, you get to level up 4 characters at a time. 2, you don't need to play the characters to level them up. You get experience for every character that's in the game. And 3, you're getting that character stronger for the future. So you have to play the character to unlock cards for that specific character. Because I'll show you what I mean. In the Tomb of Knowledge here, you can see for each class there's an amount of cards that need to be unlocked. And usually when I see this in games, I kind of hate this. Like, I hate like looking at that and like, oh, there's like things that I don't even have unlocked. And for example, like when I played Slay the Spire, I hated unlocking cards for the person who had the poison damage and the daggers, because I already had the cards for a really good dagger deck and a really good poison deck, and I didn't want to unlock new cards, because what that meant was that those cards were going to show up in, the rewards, and they were going to just fill up the opportunities with dog shit that I didn't want. And in this game, when you win a battle, you get the options of 3 cards. You can pick one, or you can just not pick any of the cards and take the shards. And you can use the shards to buy new cards, to upgrade cards. You use gold to remove cards from your deck, to remove illnesses from your deck. Because you can get wounded when you like fuck up a node. Like let's say you do some event where you're trying to jump over a river, but your character falls in the river and breaks their leg, and then they get maimed or whatever. And when you draw that card, you get like some debuffs. You get slowed, maybe you fucking, I don't know, like -1 energy or something. But there's these effects that like carry over into your deck from the node game world, and that's cool. Like there's just so many elements of the game that feel like it's almost kind of like a really cool board game. When a new item shows up and it has a lock on it, the game shows you that, hey, this card's, you don't have this unlocked, but if you select it, you'll unlock that card in the future. So when you're first kind of playing the game, you're making this calculus like, oh, well, this card's pretty good, but if I pick this card, then I unlock this card. And when you unlock the cards, sometimes that means you can craft them in the starting town. Sometimes if it's a rarer card, maybe you can craft it in the next town and at the beginning of Act 2, or maybe in the beginning of Act 3. But like you'll unlock the card, it'll exist in some manner for you to access beyond just RNG, so that eventually it gets to the point where like, you can be like me and you can start an adventure and you can go into the starting town and you will have a whole host of cards to pick from. Just look at how many cards. I got 9 pages of cards. I got binders full of cards to pick from, and you can, how do you do this? No, I don't want to search. You can, where's the filter? Oh, there we go. You can filter by every status. You can filter by, I mean, that's kind of weird how they labeled these. These are generally buffs. These are generally debuffs. And these are different damage types. And you can see here, here's the physical damage types. Here's the elemental damage types. And here's the religious, holy, and Cthulhu damage types. Wait, no. Holy, dark, and Cthulhu. There it is. Yep. So, and you can, like, let's say I want to find frost shit. Fine. I want to go by cold, but you can also go by chill. So you can get all the things that have chill and cold, and then you can build your deck around that. And like, look at this combo. You can turn water into frost, and it deals cold damage. So this thing makes everybody basically freeze. And the reason that's cool is because you could have Reginald, who has Healing Rain, who applies wet, and he applies that globally. So he could apply wet to everybody, and then you could use this and transfer all that into chill, and then you could shatter them, and it does X equals whatever shit, and it consumes all the chill on them. So it's just something cool that you can do. Like there's these synergistic combos between classes as well as within the classes that are really, really neat. So yeah, this is Across the Obelisk. It's probably one of my favorite games. I just wish more people played it. I wish more people knew about it. It's the closest thing to a kind of Magic the Gathering kind of complexity in a card game that is so streamlined and works so well. That's really all I have to say. I just want, my dream is that when I go into multiplayer and I try to join on US West, US East, that there will actually be people in here and I could join up and actually play a game. Dear God, I wish this wasn't, man, wow. Oh, there's one, but I'm sure that person's waiting for a friend. He don't want to play with me. And also join the Discord maybe, because then somehow we can get the game more popular, because this game is too good to go unappreciated. Dear God, please play the fucking game. Check it out. Please, I'm begging you. Please, somebody play the game with me.